What's going on, guys? Jacoborth back here with another video of Jacob's Life in Vegas. Coming to you guys today with a video that's going to be kind of tough for me to do. I'm over here by the strip right now. I'll flip it around for you. So, as I call it, the most famous street in the world. Sun's starting to go down behind the Mandalay Bay. But got an important video for you guys today. I've actually done a video similar to this before, probably about a year and a half ago, about 5 things destroying Las Vegas. And needless to say, a lot has changed in that year and a half. Some stuff is still the same, but there's definitely some stuff that has changed. And we're going to talk about some things today that we're going to probably take on a roller coaster ride of emotions. So some of it, there actually is some good in here. There's definitely some bad. There's definitely some stuff that'll piss you off, and there's maybe some things that'll make you sad when I tell you about it. So guys, I do ask that you like the video anyway. And if you think it deserves a subscription, hey, please subscribe to the channel. But let's go ahead and jump into the first thing here. Things that have been destroying Las Vegas in 2021, destroying things right now. And some of these things have happened in the past and they've just carried over to right now. And the first one's get out of the way. The most obvious one is the virus, right? The shutdowns have taken place, here in Nevada and really all over the country and all over the world, actually. The job losses, the fact that we had over 30% unemployment at one point during all of this. Nevada and Hawaii both had the highest unemployment in the country. And, we also had that huge fiasco of running out of unemployment money, where our own state government could not even find the money to pay out its residents, and actually end up having to borrow money from the federal government. The second thing we'll talk about are the regulations and the restrictions that have come from the virus. Not necessarily the validity of them, because you can always debate. Some states have done other things, some states have done different things. Certain things that work in one state may not work in another state, but just the fact of having those restrictions in place has seriously had a negative impact here on Las Vegas. And even since we reopened, it's not as busy as it was beforehand. So when you have these regulations, you have these restrictions, one of the big things is there's really no way to enforce 100% compliance. Since the virus has hit, I've traveled numerous times throughout the country, mostly for military stuff, a little bit for my own leisure, but mostly for military. And I've seen different regulations in different states trying to do certain things, but they cannot enforce this stuff. So, and some of it is just dumb. Regardless of your political affiliation, some of these restrictions are absolutely dumb and they make no sense. I mean, one of the ones I saw here recently in Vegas was when they gave fines to some of the strip clubs because it said they're supposed to have no topless dancing and you're supposed to be at least 25 feet between the customers and the live entertainment. So strip clubs aren't supposed to be topless anymore. It's supposed to be at least 25 feet between the customers and the dancers. So it's like they think that, some exposed areolas are going to give you the virus, but being out on Fremont Street and tipping a woman to literally whip your ass is okay. That doesn't make any sense. I've seen at the gym, just recently at the gyms here locally, they actually opened the showers again. But before that, the showers at gyms had been closed for health and safety reasons. But get this, the swimming pools at the gyms are open. I saw this in numerous gyms here in the Vegas area. Showers closed, but you can go in the swimming pool. And I even asked a staff member, I'm like, are there any special rules with the swimming pool now? She goes, no, just stay 6 feet apart when you're in there. It's like, okay, that makes a ton of sense. And even in the gym, you want people to wipe down their machines, but think of how many people are touching the free weights, touching the dumbbells, day in, day out, how many thousands of people go to different gyms around the area. But you want people to have their mask on the whole time they're working out. At first, you could just wear it walking in the gym, and then you could take it off once you're running or on the treadmill or working out or whatever it was. Now you have to have it on the whole time. Well, how much does that help if people can be touching different free weights and different dumbbells all the time? Or you can wear the plastic mask that goes up to here on your nose. Then what is that going to do? What is it stopping? So at a certain point, you look at it and you ask yourself, is this just for show? How do we justify this? How do you justify some of these things, but you don't justify some of these other things? It doesn't make any sense. The third thing destroying Las Vegas right now in 2021, and I say this with a caveat because a lot of this has been mitigated, and this is going to be some of the good news you're going to see in this video. And I say this instead with an asterisk by is maybe the way to put it, is the crime increase. And I say it that way because some of you remember that back over the summertime, wasn't that long ago, there was some bad reports coming out in the news about all the crime taking place on the Strip. So, and actually in the beginning of the summer when all that was going on, some of you had asked me to do a video about it and that were questioning it because you were hearing some of it on social media, but you weren't hearing it on the mainstream media. So, you guys had seen, multiple shootings, stabbing on the Strip, stabbing on Fremont Street. I mean, the violence was getting bad. It definitely was. And even when I did that video about the violence in Las Vegas taking place over the summertime, a fair amount of people actually really appreciated that. They appreciated, you know, me telling them what was actually going on and not just saying it's sunshine and rainbows over here right now, because things were getting rough. And Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department did increase their enforcement on the Strip. They increased their numbers. They increased their display of force. That's why there were times here on the Strip you could see quite a few more Metro police vehicles out and about. And really, we were in a position where what else were we going to do to stop the shootings and stop all the stabbings taking place on the Strip, you know, and on Fremont Street and those areas? You guys saw on the news, the fights that were taking place, how bad it was getting. Oftentimes, even the nicer properties. And the one Las Vegas Metro Police Captain was speaking, saying how a lot of the increase was coming from out of state, gang affiliation from out of state, the amount of firearms that they recovered off of people. I'm sure much of those were illegally possessed, but they got them anyway. So there was a lot of bad stuff going on during that time over the summer, but a lot of that has been mitigated and a lot of that has been handled well since then. But a lot of people still think that, like, you know, all that crime is still carrying over here to 2021. So if I say that basically is the perception that the crime is high, a lot of people are still going to have that in their heads until that kind of fades away, till we get more back to normal and people realize that there's not the crime in the summertime that we had taking place right now. So that's really more to say, you know, good job to our local law enforcement agencies who had to handle that, because things were getting bad, not just here in Vegas, but all over the country. And they put a lot of extra effort, put a lot of extra resources, and people doing overtime to try to help keep the Strip and Fremont Street safe. The fourth thing we'll talk about that's ruining Las Vegas, and this one has really got brushed to the side since all this COVID stuff happened, is the resort fees. That's a big one. You guys remember before this pandemic, that's what was pissing people off about Vegas all the time, was the resort fees. And even now, if you still look, I just did a test the other day to go stay at a hotel, and the resort fee was more than the price of the hotel for that night. So that's still going on right now in Las Vegas, but it's just getting overshadowed by a lot of the talk about COVID, by lots of talk about other news. And then a lot of people also, they're concerned that once, you know, Vegas does get back to normal, once we start getting our numbers higher again, that these hotels and casinos might try to implement paid parking again. So, you know, once we closed down and we reopened, all these hotels and casinos went to free parking because the demand wasn't here. They couldn't justify charging people for parking because there weren't enough people coming here at the time. So that's a concern that, you know, when you come back, it's like, okay, is Vegas going to keep parking free? Are these hotels and casinos going to keep parking free? Or as the numbers come back, are they going to try to squeeze people, nickel and dime people, you know, for more and more money, just like they were doing before the pandemic hit? The fifth and final thing that is destroying Las Vegas right now, and this is going to be the one that's going to take me the most time to talk about and going to be the saddest one, is I initially want to do this topic or this bullet point and just say, you know, about laws that were coming into effect that were hurting small business owners, how lots of these job creators we have, they're small businesses, were not getting any help, and they were getting really, I think, shortchanged by their own government. Well, even before that, we can talk about something that a lot of people probably didn't realize, that, you know, the Raiders Stadium we have here, the Las Vegas Raiders Stadium, that was funded by the room tax, tens of millions of dollars of that came from locals. Some of you probably remember when that was trending in the news a lot a couple years ago, that, oh, it's only tourists going to pay that tax, right? It's only people that are going to be staying here on the Strip, or people staying in Fremont Street. It's all the tourists paying that room tax. Don't worry, it's just the tourists. None of the locals are going to pay a dime, right? That was what a lot of you were sold. That's what a lot of us were sold. That's what a lot of us were told. The reality of it is that this first group I'll talk about paying the room tax is not as big a deal as the next group I'm going to talk about. The first group is, yeah, if you're in Nevada and live in another part of the state, you come here for vacation, you're paying that tax. If you live in the area and you're doing a staycation, yes, you are paying that tax. But a lot of you probably didn't know that a lot of these weekly stays, for the first 30 days, if you stayed there at a Budget Suites or Seagull Suites or one of those, you had to pay that tax also. And I know some of you that have come here and moved here have had to stay at those places because you couldn't find a place to live, you're in a bad financial position, so maybe your credit wasn't good, so you took that just because you could get something. You paid part of that tax to the tunes of tens of millions of dollars is estimated to have been taken from our working poor who are just one step above being on the street and being homeless. And some homeless people do stay there when they can. So people, some of our poorest residents actually had to pay that tax and pay into that. tens of millions of dollars. And a lot of people probably didn't even realize that.
Raiders move into Las Vegas. I know you're not a fan of it because you wonder where in the world do these cities get the money. Tell me.
Because they rip off poor people to build these stadiums. You know, it's amazing. We have the awful public school system. We can't pay our teachers and things like that, but they come up with money.
When you look at that, and you look at what has been done recently to a lot of the small business owners here who are going to be having their cost of business just to stay open is going to increase. So a lot of this happened when it came to increasing the minimum wage here in Nevada, which for 5 straight years, the minimum wage is going to be increased. 5 straight years. And if you're a small business, you know, I'll give you an example. I'll put the math up here on the screen if you can see. If you're a small business that has just 10 full-time employees, which is a very realistic scenario, it could be 1 restaurant, it could be 2 coffee shops, it could be 2 diners or whatever the case is. If you just have 10 full-time employees and you look at the math, these numbers are rounded by the way, you're looking at 5 years in a row of a $15,000 to $16,000 increase just to stay open every single year. Every year you're gonna have to pay $15,000 to $16,000 more dollars just to keep your 10 employees that you have. So you look at that, that's an over 30% increase, almost $80,000 in 5 years just to stay open. Not even including trying to grow your business, not including trying to expand anywhere else, not including any extra money that, you know, the owners, if it's a mom and pop, a husband and wife team, they're trying to keep for themselves. So these small business owners, who lots of times these minimum wage jobs are worked by teenagers and, you know, college students. Those are a lot of them. High school and college students work a lot of these jobs. So now it becomes harder for the small business owner who pay those wages for some of those jobs that are lower skill to employ people. Because also there's expected to be a payroll tax increase. A lot of these businesses that have survived this pandemic, they're gonna have a payroll tax increase. So some of them are gonna have their cost of labor increase, which for a lot of businesses is their most expensive cost. They're also gonna have their payroll tax increase. So and some of these businesses really are not in a position to be doing that right now. And what I tell you a little later is gonna piss you off more because it feels like they didn't get that much help from their own government, which I'm generally not one to tell people to rely on the government anyway. I want you to build your own life. I encourage people to be entrepreneurs and do what they can to be more independent from having to rely on the government. But when it comes to a situation like this, in a pandemic, this is not a normal situation, okay? In a normal environment, businesses are gonna compete. Some are gonna do well, some are not. Some are gonna thrive, some are gonna go out of business. That's what happens. When you have a pandemic that just totally hits businesses all across the board, large and small, the large businesses are gonna be better off than the small ones, okay? These huge casinos, right? These billions and billions of dollars of assets here that you see, these major corporations, they have all kinds of options that small business owners do not. They have all kinds of resources, financial and otherwise, that mom and pops don't, okay? They can take out huge loans if they want. They can cut all kinds of staff to get rid of some of the fat. They can replace staff with robots and machines to automate. They can have lobbyists at the state level and the federal level influence politicians when it comes to making laws. Mom and pops don't have that option. They don't have that choice. So when I meet someone like a guy I met one time who came here, and he'd only been here 2 weeks from Hawaii and already has his business up and running and was trying to get to other Hawaiian restaurants to have this food he made and to get them to display it there. I met a guy one time in Spring Valley from Ethiopia who had his storefront. It was him, his wife, and 2 little kids. And the guy he's halfway around the world in a second language, in a culture he's not familiar with, and he's trying to run his own business there. And even then, he tried to have a suggestion box where it was in broken English, what he was trying to ask people to do. So I, rewrote it in more proper English for the guy. The guy was grateful that, I just helped him with that little bit of his business. But that guy's trying to support his family halfway around the world in a place that's completely foreign to him. And a guy like that is going to have any of his cost of business. If he winds up getting employees, he's gonna have his cost of business raised. So many of them can't afford this right now. And part of the reason it upsets me even more right now than normal is because a lot of you are familiar with what had happened, right, with the airport, right? That's supposed to be private money. You can raise a couple $1 million to change the name of an airport, but we can't help out some of the business owners during a pandemic. And the idea too is that these taxes that are gonna be raised are supposed to help, right? It's supposed to be like what, in 2019, when they had taxes raised, the sales tax went up here in Clark County. Out of Carson City, they allowed the county commissioners, if they wanted, by a vote of 2/3, to raise sales tax if they wanted. Well, our commissioners here agreed to do that because the money's supposed to go to education and social services, right? That's a popular tactic, right? Say the money's gonna go to the children, it's gonna go to the homeless, it's gonna go to whatever disadvantaged group they want to hold up in front of the people and say, yes, it's gonna go to them, we wanna help them. Well, it was supposed to raise $54 million, but once the commission passed it here in Clark County, they opened it up to other government agencies. That's what they did. It's not even gonna go to the schools. And even if it goes to the schools, how much of it makes it into the classroom versus how much goes to administrators? So they hold up the children to say, oh, we need to give more money to the children, but then how much it actually makes to the children? So we can't get $54 million to go to children, but we can get hundreds of millions of dollars of public money to go to a stadium. The state can't get people their unemployment money, but they can fundraise $2 million to rename an airport. You know, I'm sure Vicky's Diner, which was here for over 50 years on Las Vegas Boulevard, that locals and tourists alike enjoyed coming to visit. I'm sure Vicky's Diner could have used some of that private money that you can fundraise so easily for political purposes. I'm sure the Pinball Hall of Fame owner, who's doing a GoFundMe right now to try and stay in business, to move from his old location to his new location, to try to bring more people here to Vegas, which we desperately need right now. I'm sure he would have appreciated a couple $1 million being fundraised. I mean, I'll put the link down below for the GoFundMe if you guys want to contribute to that, because don't expect it to come from the government. Don't expect any help from them. So that's part of the frustration right now, is seeing the priorities completely out of whack, completely out of place from where you would think they would be. So, and I don't expect people to be perfect. I'm not perfect. None of us are perfect. I mean, it's one thing even if you just lie, if you're in office to benefit yourself, or even if you do some backdoor deal, which often happens at the federal level, or maybe you buy land out in the middle of nowhere, and then you're some politician who buys land in the middle of nowhere, and then shortly after that, the government announces plans to build something through it. Oh, wow, how convenient, your property value goes way up, and so does your net worth, right? That'd be one thing for that. But even this, but when you actually target some of your working poor, some of your poorest people, you financially attack them with a tax increase. That's terrible. Like, that's awful. The more I think about it, the more sad it makes me to think about something like that taking place, to think about that. And I don't know if there were advocate groups who tried to stand up against this, or who were against this, or maybe they just didn't get that much attention. But taxing your working poor to go use the money somewhere else, saying you're going to use, you know, tens of millions of dollars to fund education, and you open up to other agencies. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars that has gone to other places that I'm sure if you ask the public at large here in Nevada, they would probably have other ideas for places to spend that money. So it's hard for me to ever want to see. It's like, you can't, like, they've shown that they can't be trusted with the money that's already in the government right now, right? I mean, we can't pay unemployment, right? But we can change the name of that airport. Don't have the money for that. So you can't even manage the money there is now. So what reason is there to trust that another tax increase would be a good idea? If you're going to waste money, the money you have now, why would you just not waste more money in the future? Like, if the habit of spending it doesn't change, it doesn't matter how much there is. It's just going to be a bigger hole and more in debt. You're just going to have the state of Nevada more in debt. So that's about it. I'm kind of frustrated. So I'm a little frustrated if you guys couldn't tell. Video's like almost 20 minutes now. I didn't even expect it to go this long. I know it was a lot to say, and I'm sure there's stuff I forgot, but those are some of the things going on in Vegas right now that are not so pretty, that have been going on really the last few years. And I think a lot more could have been done to help people who legitimately needed it. So fundraisers down below if you guys want to help the Pinball Hall of Fame stay open for business. You guys like visiting that place. I did a video for them several years ago. It's an awesome spot. So if you want to help your local businesses, I encourage you to do so, because you know one place it's not going to come from. That's it for this video, guys. I'm Jacob. This is My Life in Vegas.